my convertible's got really small back windows, and quite frankly, I can't see shit when I'm trying to reverse. So let's put a reversing camera in it. Fuck it, why not?
Well guys, we'll get straight into it and installing this reversing camera. I've gone with a Gator 9-inch screen. It was a little bit expensive, but again, I did get this on half price. Let's open up and see what's inside. First thing out of the box is that 9-inch screen, and that just connects straight over the top of our rear view mirror. Now let's have a look what's under here. A bag full of clips, and inside there, those are the rubber bands that will go over and hold the camera on. We've also got a power cable. In this bag, we've got a cigarette lighter power cable. And finally in this bag, the camera with all the wiring. Well, I've decided where I'm going to connect it. I've undone all the screws, and I'm going to try and pull the wire through one of these little holes just here. Maybe that small one over there. Well, that sits on there quite well, real snug. Thank God we got the right size. I didn't measure beforehand. That's just held on with the rubber straps around the back of the rearview mirror. And I think that's going to work quite well for what we need to achieve. Now for the most challenging part is running the cable. So what I've done so far is attach the cable and run it through the top here. I've just pushed it in behind the seams. I've come down the seam here and onto the dash. I did want to try and go behind the dash, however that's going to be a pain in the ass. So instead I'm going to go down to the side of the dash and try and wedge it into that little gap there. From here we're just going to run it down underneath the skirting and all the way to the back of the car. Coming around to the boot, we can see we've got some gaps that are behind the back seat. So I've pushed the cable through those little gaps that's going to run behind the back seat. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab onto that cable, pull it all the way through, see if we can find a path all the way back into the boot lid, where we will be mounting the camera. Looking side on the boot, we've got the plastic trim off, and looks like we've got a nice spot here. That's probably where we're going to run the cable through. Alright, we've pulled the cable into the boot, and now we need to get her into the lid. This cable here runs up, and that's for the locking mechanism of the boot lid. We're going to follow that very same path with this cable up to the boot lid, because if we come around to the top and have a look at our hole we want to go through, it's right next to the latch. So before we go any further, what we need to do with the cables here is this red cable. This is actually the switch cable. And what that means is that cable tells the reversing camera when the car is in reverse. If we look down here, we have the plug that plugs the rear lights in. Now what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to find out which one of these cables is the reverse lights, and we're going to have to tap this red cable onto the reverse light cable so that the camera knows when the car is in reverse by when the reverse lights activate. Now there's a tool for that. We're going to use one of these. This is just a little volt pen, and that's going to tell us which cable has power. So we're going to plug that onto earth, somewhere on the chassis, anywhere will do, and we're going to start testing cables. So the way this works, for anyone who doesn't know, when this pen touches electricity, a little light will light up, and that's how you find the corresponding wire to what light you have on. So there, that light lighting up is for my headlights that are on, or my tail lights. That one is off, that pin's off, and this pin should be my indicator that I've got on at the moment. And that pin's off. So now we know where the tail lights and the indicator are. So here I have the car in reverse, with my reverse lights on. This one's not on because it's unplugged. And down in here, our pen is showing that we have power in this socket. And if we have a look at which socket that is, that's socket number 3. So now we just go to that corresponding wire and tap into it. Well, what I've got here is a wire tap connector, otherwise known as a splice. And this little thing is quite simply going to splice into our cable. The way it works is you take the cable that you're trying to splice into and the cable that you're trying to splice to, and you put them through there. Once they're both in there, you clamp down with this metal piece, and that will give connection on both cables and give power to both cables. Then you just put the clip over the top to secure it in place. Now, I do only recommend splicing cables if it's for like a switch cable. I wouldn't recommend doing it for something that's got constant power, just because the connection's not that stable for constant flow. Well, we've drilled out our little hole now, made it a bit bigger. Let's go ahead and pull the cable through for the camera. Like a glove. Well, I'm pretty happy with how that came out. Oh, you can see the little hole under there where I've drilled. I've mounted the bracket to the back, reattached the cover here. That's still loose because I haven't tightened her up yet. And she runs in under there, down through there, out, spliced in there, and to the front of the cab. Well, with that connected there, and the wires running all the way through the skirting and connected there, that's pretty much it for the install. Once that's on the mirror, you have your wire going to your camera and your wire going to your power. However, the power cable it comes with is nothing more than a 12-volt cigarette lighter plug-in. Now, we're currently doing quite a bit to this car to make it look nice and pretty. And, well, this just isn't good enough. So we're going to fix that. But Hansi, how are we going to fix that? Well, I don't like it. So, I went shopping. And I got myself a hardwire harness, as well as a fuse wire tap. And we're just going to tap that straight into the cigarette lighter from the fuse box itself. For those of us who don't know where to find the fuse box, it's located down here. These 4 plastic screws come off, and there's a fuse box behind there. Let there be fuse box. Now that we've got access to the fuse box, we need to figure out which fuse is for the cigarette lighter. Luckily enough, there's this nifty little diagram inside your owner's manual that'll tell you exactly which fuse does what. Now for us, we need to look for fuse number 36. And on the back of the cover, the plastic cover that you take off, it has numbers, and those numbers correspond to the fuses. So I've identified fuse number 36, and that is this blue one here. And that's just a 15 amp fuse, and that runs the cigarette lighter. And that's what we're going to be tapping into for our reversing camera. If we come down from the fuse box just slightly and across, there's this bolt just here. That is attached to metal at the back, which is attached to the body. That looks like a good spot for our earthing. So this is our wiring harness that we got from Jaycar. What I've done at the end here is just put a little clip on. That way we can find an earthing spot for that. I've also then taken the piggyback fuse adapter and I've just crimped that onto the existing wire on the harness. And I've got here just 2 fuses. One of these fuses will run the cigarette lighter and the other fuse will run the wiring harness. Alright, moment of truth, I suppose. Now that we've got that earthed, we're going to take our piggyback adapter and we're going to plug it in and see what we come up with. Well, there we have it, our piggyback adapter plugged in. Now that should run my cigarette lighter as well as the camera. We've not pulled the cord through and set it just yet because we want to make sure that this works. So let's plug it in, turn the ignition on and see what happens. Here it goes, moment of truth. We have power on ignition. Well, my next job now is running the harness out from the fuse box, through the trim, up the dash, along the trim of the windscreen, all the way up and along until we hit the rearview mirror. Well, there we have it, guys. That's the full install of the reverse camera. It's pretty simple to do. I'm just a little bit fussy and I really wanted that hard wire in, so I didn't have those cables down the front of the car. If you guys are looking for the hardwire kit, I'll leave a link in the description below to Jcar where you can grab that. I'll also leave a link for the reversing camera itself. Anyway guys, thanks for watching, and as always, if you got anything out of this or just enjoyed watching, leave us a like and a comment below.